Have you ever felt like your brain has two different drivers? One with their foot slammed on the brake and the other just flooring the gas pedal? Well, that's exactly the feeling we're digging into today. This fascinating internal tug-of-war between needing everything to be in perfect order and at the same time, craving total chaos. So, does this sound familiar to you? You spend hours making the most perfect, color-coded, beautiful schedule, but then the second it's time to actually follow it, your brain is like, nope, boring, and is already chasing after some new spontaneous idea. That right there, that feeling is the heart of the paradox we're unpacking.
And this whole experience, it actually has a name, AuDHD. It's what we call the co-occurrence of autism and ADHD. But it's not as simple as just, adding two things together. It creates a completely unique neurotype. There's this hefty chunk of overlap, where the traits are constantly interacting, sometimes conflicting, and they can even end up hiding each other.
So, to really get a handle on AuDHD, we've got to look at these two distinct and often totally contradictory sets of needs that are always at war with each other. It's almost like a tale of two brains living in one head, and each one is pulling in the complete opposite direction.
And here is where that core conflict just becomes crystal clear. On one side, you've got the autistic brain, which craves order, predictability, routine. It loves sameness. It's comfortable. But on the other side, the ADHD brain is basically a novelty-seeking machine. It's always on the hunt for stimulation, for a dopamine hit. It absolutely thrives on spontaneity. And there it is again, that feeling of one driver hitting the brake, desperate for stability, and the other one hitting the gas, demanding excitement.
Okay, so how does this internal tug-of-war actually play out in the real world? Because this isn't just some abstract idea, right? It shows up in really tangible and honestly often incredibly frustrating ways in everyday life.
And it leads to one of the most confusing feelings possible, being both overstimulated and understimulated at the exact same time. I know, it sounds impossible. How can you feel totally overwhelmed and completely bored at once? But for someone with ADHD, this can be a constant state of being.
Let's break it down with a couple of real-life examples. Imagine you're in a noisy office. The lights are buzzing, people are chatting, it's sensory overload. That's your overstimulation. But the spreadsheet you're supposed to be working on is just mind-numbingly dull. That's the understimulation. Or hey, think about being at a party. You really crave that social connection, you're understimulated socially, but trying to navigate all the unwritten rules of small talk is just completely overwhelming. See? Both things happening at once.
It sounds exhausting, and trust me, it is. So you might be wondering, okay, if there's all this chaos going on inside, why can't you always see it on the outside? Well, the answer comes down to a really powerful coping mechanism. It's known as the AuDHD masking cycle. So it starts with an ADHD-driven impulse. Maybe you blurt something out or make an unplanned purchase. Then, almost immediately, the autistic part of the brain kicks in with this intense frustration or even shame over that break in routine. And the final step? Masking. That's when you hide that entire internal battle to try and present this calm, normal exterior to the rest of the world.
Okay, so we've laid out the conflict, the exhaustion, that whole masking cycle. But just understanding the problem, well, that's not enough, is it? The most important part here is shifting how we think about all this, moving from a place of frustration to a place of real understanding. And this, right here, is probably the most crucial thing to hear. If any of this feels familiar to you, please know this. It is not a personal failure. You're not lazy, you're not disorganized, you're not too much. What you're experiencing is a genuine neurological conflict. This is about how your brain is wired, not some flaw in your character. And that reframing is a total game changer. When you can stop blaming yourself and start recognizing that this is just how your unique brain is built, you can finally start to move forward. Just recognizing the source of the conflict, those two competing needs, is the single most powerful step towards self-understanding and, finding strategies that actually work for your specific brain.
So let's do a super quick recap of the big takeaways. First, AuDHD is really defined by that core conflict between the need for routine and the need for novelty. Second, this paradox can lead to that wild feeling of being over and understimulated simultaneously. And finally, and most importantly, understanding that this is neurological, not personal, is the absolute key to moving forward with some self-compassion.
So, I'll leave you with this one last thought. We've focused a lot on the conflict and the struggle, but what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if this constant negotiation between deep, focused thought and wild, creative spontaneity, between order and chaos, what if it isn't a bug, but a feature? A truly unique and maybe even powerful one. Definitely something to think about.